Before we get into our State of the Game podcast, I want to give thanks to our sponsors who make these free podcasts possible. Brad Morrison and Danny's Cafe, located in beautiful Rossford, Ohio. Danny's Cafe is the ultimate spot for a family-friendly breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or a night out with friends to watch your favorite high school, college, or pro team. Danny's Cafe offers an incredible food experience for people with varying types of palates, and the service is fast and provided by the most hospitable staff in Northwest Ohio. The next time you're on the hunt for a place to grab a bite or cheer on your favorite team, head to Danny's Cafe, located directly across the street from Rossford High School. For an athlete, few things are worse than having to compete on a slick surface. Well, my friends Tom Rose and Matt Olin have solved this conundrum by creating Grip Spritz. Grip Spritz offers a wide array of shoe-to-court traction products that are not only highly effective, but also affordable, easy to use, and easy to transport. It's no wonder Grip Spritz has become the official traction solution for the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Association and the National High School Basketball Coaches Association. Take it from me. If the OHSBCA and the NHSBCA are making Grip Spritz their official court cleaning product, Grip Spritz simply has to be the best on the market. LJR Shambo and Game One. If you're looking for an easy and affordable way to purchase all of your sporting good needs, look no further than Game One, located in Swanton, Ohio. I've worked with LJR Shambo for 20 years, and I have never worked with a more honest, punctual, and detail-oriented sporting goods salesman. I coached for nearly 3 decades and in 2 different states, and have never worked with a better organization than Game One, and more importantly, a better person than LJR Shambo. It's always game on at Game One. Derek Sheridan from Rustbelt Basketball Coaches Network, thank you for joining us this evening. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is our State of the Game Episode 2 podcast. So we've got a lively crew with us this evening. We've got Tom Johnson, who is an Indiana guy. Tom and I not only coached against each other, have been very, very close friends for darn near 30 years. Tom is a retired basketball coach. His last stop was at Wheeler High School and is now working for ISTA. So he's still heavily involved in the world of education. Kirk Lehman, the legend from Defiance High School, the Defiance Bulldogs. Coach Lehman's a state champion coach. He won his state championship in 2014. 2016. Kirk is one of those guys, as with everybody on this podcast, one of the best in not only their area, but also the respective state.
But getting old because it was 2015, Derek. Sorry.
We're right. We'll meet in the middle. And then Paul Wayne, the legend from Holgate High School, who's also a state champion coach. Coach Wayne and I met in the early 2000s at actually the Hall of Fame induction meeting when I was coaching at Greenfield McLean for the Hall of Fame coach, Rick Van Meter. That's when Coach Van Meter was inducted. When Wayne was involved, there's oftentimes a lot of brain fog following day. So...
And there was that weekend too.
Phew, you got that right. And then Pat Skaggs, who's coached damn near everywhere in the state of Indiana and has been a coach at some of the smallest schools and also some of the biggest. Logan Sport being a bigger school than he finished his career at Attica, which is in west central Indiana. I will leave everybody with this. And I didn't think of this when I typed up the itinerary, but every coach on this broadcast has been a featured clinician at one of our clinics. Coach Wayne and Coach Johnson spoke at the same District 7 clinic in 2015. Coach Skaggs was a featured clinician at our 2001 Hammond Gavitt clinic.
Well, that's been a long time ago, Coach.
Yeah, I did the Ham and Gavitt one
Yes, you
too.
did. Yes, you did. I was just getting
Oh
ready
my
to say that.
God, that was a long time ago.
Yes. And then Kirk Lehman, the year after his state championship, came in and just did a fantastic job. All of your presentations were great. And the most beautiful thing about all of those presentations was you got to work with kids. You know, they were on the court versus the Zoom stuff, which there's nothing better than an on the court clinic. So,
Coach, you got me thinking about that day back in 2001. I think I followed Marty Johnson, and he was
yes, you
speaking
did.
on the flex offense.
Of course
That
he
sound right?
was.
Yep.
Of course he
Yeah.
was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had some great clinics. Steve Platt from Huntington College. We had Pat Skaggs, Tom Johnson, Bill Harrell, right before Coach Harrell
Bill
passed
Patrick.
away. Bill Patrick, right. My goodness.
Are you talking about Hammond Bishop Knoll?
Yeah, exactly.
I actually went out there. I think it was Jerry King. Was he the coach about 77?
Yeah, Jerry King was at Crown Point prior to that. I was at Crown Point.
Okay. I went out and spent a weekend or a long weekend and picked his brain for like a week. And then that was right before I got hired at Holgate in 1977. I owe it to Jerry King and his school there.
Yeah, he had a skills school.
Mm-hmm.
He had, I think, Thad Garner right around that time and some other good players.
One of Tom and I's really good friends was the head coach at Knoll, Adam Paytai. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. Just as we did in State of the Game episode 1, we're going to talk about some of the current topics that are hot with high school basketball coaches who are primarily over the age of 50. We all certainly fall into that category easily. The premise for this, when we got asked to do this, was, as Tom and I have talked a lot about, and I've talked to everybody here a lot about, it's all about preserving the game now. We're trying to put our heads together, rub sticks together, whatever it takes, and try to save this thing from turning into AAU. Kirk, where you coach in the WBL, I don't think that'll ever happen. Sports in the WBL, Western Buckeye League, are always going to be fantastic. And you might have a different perspective on that. Holgate's the same.
I think you're right, Derek. And the schools have luckily kept things pretty well in-house. And then the AAU teams that have been around have been coaches. For example, Al Welch, who was a coach in the area. And that has helped a little bit. But I still think it's going to get to the point, my belief is, that the AAU is going to get bigger and bigger. And when you start talking about sponsors and the money and things like that, I think it gets to be tougher and tougher. And then the coaches will just have to adjust like we always have, I think. And I think they will. I think they will, Derek.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. The OHSAA, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, is working closely with the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Association, trying to come to some agreement on how to control the NIL. According to the last meeting I was at, it could even be here quicker than the shot clock.
Actually, Derek, I was just at a meeting with Doug Ute, who is our OHSA commissioner. It is coming, and it's coming real quick, and they want to enact something so they can stay ahead of the curve. I guess he said NIL's in over 40 states already, and they want to enact a policy so that it doesn't get out of control like it is in the college ranks.
We'll get back to that. Let's start off with our first topic. How do you guys think the game has changed offensively and defensively compared to where it was 30 seasons ago?
Well, I was brought up with a guy named Don Huber, who was a legendary coach at Continental, and he thought if anybody laid a finger on somebody, it should be a foul. So I'm going to say the physicality and the physicality nowadays and the advent of video. You couldn't get video on opponents. If you got one, you felt like gold. Now, if you don't have 6, 8, 10 videos on the opponent, you can neutralize the strengths through the use of videos. So I think offensively, people maybe don't do the fundamental skills quite like they used to, but I think the advent of the physicality and the videotapes has really hurt the offenses.
Paul, I think that's a great point. I guess what I would say, Coach, with that question So I graduated from college from UND in 1984. And so when I come out of college and I wanted to be a coach after playing, I was watching the Bob Knight tapes and the Don Meyer tapes and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And,
Yep.
uh, last year or so, I go back and try to, help Attica High School. And you know what? You got to have several guys that can dribble the ball to do some of this ball screen stuff. The guys are. I said, the guy I followed, he didn't do, what I would do, a lot of down screens and back screens and block to block screens and stuff like that. So, I'd be the biggest change that I would say. It's a lot more dribbling and less passing and screening and so forth as when we came through.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, my big problem with the game right now is there's way too much dribbling, not enough passing, and shot selection drives me insane. And I'm to the point where football's gone in the other direction. It is a very precise sport. I mean, there are a lot of Hall of Fame quarterbacks that have more interceptions than they do touchdowns, but we also know today those quarterbacks don't stay in the league very long. So there's a premium on not making mistakes, and I don't see that in our game today. I see people throw shots away, dribbling the air out of the ball. How many times do you see a guy dribble, dribble, dribble? There's a guy open and they miss the window to deliver the ball and they end up passing it to him and the defense is recovered. And sometimes it makes the game unwatchable for me.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well summed up right there by all of those guys, Derek. I look back to my playing days, and when we were at Ohio University, Danny Nee was big on getting to the free throw line, and we had three guys shoot 100 free throws or 180 free throws in a season. The year we won the Mid American Conference, and I compare it to high school shooting 100. In the last 4 years I coached at Defiance, we had one guy that shot 100 free throws. It's such a physical game anymore that I think some of the art of the game or the abilities of players to be able to shoot the basketball has really gone out the window. And I came from a high school coach who believed what Coach Johnson and Coach Skaggs said: pass and move. Keep the ball off the floor. The less time the ball was on the floor, the better. And I carried that through to my coaching years. So, I'm basically summing up what all those guys said.
By the way, Derek, I doubt if Kirk shot 100 free throws in his career. You don't get fouled too often at 26 feet.
Good point, Wayno.
That's funny.
Well, here's another thing that I would say, especially if you have a young guy with some size. I mean, there's a lot of coaches out there now that don't, what they say, waste their time doing any post play work. And boy, you hate to see you get a 6'5" kid that's a couple of 100 pounds and worrying about him playing 23 feet from the basket. I'm still not of that school of thought.
Post play is just not there. And, Pat, you and Derek know that I ran an up-tempo offense, but it was all predicated on getting the ball inside first.
Right.
And, my kiddos in practice every day, they were doing mic and drills. That's how we started before we went into post moves. And I don't see that I see it more in high school than I do in other areas, but there's not a lot of good post play anymore.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Coach Johnson on that point of throwing the ball inside. It used to be throw it inside and they'll kick it back out and you'll have a wide open perimeter shot. I never shot with the three, but we always taught our kids, hey, throw it inside and then get set up for your 3-point shot. And I think that's a great point.
Yep.
When I played, high school and college was played east to west. We wanted reversals. We all had, every coach I played for had statistics posted in our locker room, and every one of those gyms I played in or schools I played for, X amount of reversals equals this points per game statistic or this percentage of shot. And so reversals, not turning the thing over, throwing it to your teammates, was a critical redundancy that was non-negotiable. Now the game's so north-south driven. As you guys have all said, that it's all off the dribble. You just don't see the same amount of structure.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree 100% with that on your east-west. The more, yeah, and I would always chart east-west, but I wasn't smart enough to do what you guys did, chart it and then put a point value on it in your OER chart. That's great comment there.
Thank you. Everybody here said the same thing. Basically, the fundamental skills are lacking. Pat made such an astute point. You got a 6'5" kid, 200 pounds, whatever, and the kid doesn't want to play inside. Man, it makes things so much tougher when you've got a kid who can go do something that very few kids in your league can probably do, and he doesn't want to do it. You play somebody like Kirk in Wayno when you were at Napoleon, then you go play Perrysburg, which for Tom and Pat, that's like going to Maryville with our version of Jim East, who is Dave Boyce, and they get the thing on the right block every time down the court. They run this misdirection stuff, and they get the ball on the right block, and their post players have two moves: drop step baseline or drop step middle. That's it. And they score like wildfire. And we're not talking about 6'10", like not Jim East type of players either. These are kids who are at the most 6'4" at the most, but they know how to make those two moves to perfection.
Yeah, that Patterson boy back in what was it, 12 years ago, exactly what Derek is saying. I mean, he was on the right block. You weren't going to get him off the right block because he had a sturdy frame, and he started to be able to go middle, but he was usually going to go power. I call it power right to the left shoulder, but he eventually was able to. But he could finish. He could finish down there, and they got him the ball like a banshee.
And my reason for bringing that up is one of the reasons why they were so successful with that stuff is nobody had to guard it until they got to Perrysburg. And Kirk, you did a hell of a job too with getting the ball on the blocks, but your kids were always so good at shooting the thing from the perimeter. I mean, you could spread people out. The year you won the state championship, you had the best of both worlds. You had the Singleton kid inside, and then your shooter who went to ONU, I believe.
We had Westetter on the perimeter, and then Michael Menendez, also on the perimeter. Those guys. But one thing from today's game and that dribble drive and getting to the basket and stuff like that, and I think that's important. And I think we all understand that penetration is important. But I think with the dribble drive, one thing that's really lost is kids go too deep, and now they don't have those passing lanes. They don't have the, and they're 4 dribbles in instead of what I know I was taught, and I know what we taught. You get 2 dribbles, you should be able to get to the basket or create something. And I think with this dribble drive, they get so far in there that it gets so crowded that there's no spacing at all, Derek. But we were a firm believer in inside out, and we tried to establish the inside, as Coach Skaggs was talking about a little bit earlier, and then we really worked hard on our perimeter guys getting their feet set and being ready and stepping into shots as well. So
do your work early. Yep.
Pat, who was the huge upset you had when you were at Benton Central? You had an upset one year that was just crazy good.
There's still time to take advantage of our back-to-school sale, where students of the game of basketball can get a full year membership to our Basketball Nexus website for only $30. That is a $20 savings, and plus, coaches who take advantage of this deal will only pay $40 for consecutive memberships going forward, which I think is a steal. Check our website out at www.myrustbeltbasketball.com, and if you're a true student of the game, you're going to like what you see. Our materials are relevant to high school, junior high, coaches of all level. We've got something there for all coaches. Check us out. I guarantee if you're a student of the game, you're going to like what you see, and you're really going to like the price.
In Rustbelt on the same day, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Remember they had the big kid in the night game they called Baby Shaq?
Can you hear us?
Yeah. That was the night, and our best kid became an all-star. He fouled out at the end of regulation, and we kind of were able to foul them, and they missed, and we scored, and just kind of held on to it the rest of the game. And they fouled us, and we made free throws. But yeah,
See, Pat's trying to make it sound like they got lucky. That's not true. He was up in the region one day, the Monday after you won the sectional, and you sat down with me for a couple hours. You sat down with a bunch of people. You had a great game plan, not just for each team, but how that was going to work. And if I remember right, the rest that your kids were going to need to get, because you had to beat those two teams in the same day.
Wow.
And that you had a great game plan, like I said, not just to get to the final, but to win the regional, and you knew what you did. So Derek, I would say that weekend that you were talking about is one of the finer coaching moments that I saw in the Indiana tournament, where you had to win two games against two teams that had some Division I players. They were really, really good players.
Going back to post play, Benton Central just murdered them on the blocks, even though they had a 6'10" kid.
Yeah, I mean, you know what we had. I mean, there's a lot of things. First of all, I'd like to thank Tom for the kind words, and that's one thing you miss about coaching is meeting with coaches like you guys and being able to share thoughts, and you know, you can always learn something from other guys. But you know, long story short, you know, when I was at Benton Central, it was a great time to be there. And I mean, having 20 to 25 kids show up in the gym in the summertime at 6:30 in the morning, ready to work out, man, I was really fortunate to be there at that time. And so, you know, our kids maybe were not the best athletes, but they were skilled and they were pretty smart. And it's because they put the time in, and you know, they were pretty good kids and made good grades, and you know, good things can happen when all that comes together.
Absolutely. And Tom, going back to Tom said one of the finest coaching moments I saw firsthand was when your Crown Point team upset Hammond High. Was that in the first round of the regionals, Tom?
That was the first year of class basketball, and thankfully for us, it was a one-game regional. I don't know how much gas we would have had in the tank if we would have had to face Gary West. But yeah, it's kind of what Pat said. I had really good, skilled kids that would run through a brick wall, not just for me, but for each other. And you know, that was the big key. And they drove each other. And, you know, I was just lucky enough to be the coach. I think I'm frozen.
We can still hear you. At least you froze in a.
Am I back? Was I frozen? Okay, okay. All you were frozen. Okay, you could hear me. Yeah, it was a special team. I mean, it was one of those teams that we didn't always have the best players, but man, we had a lot of really good young men that I'm still involved with today. You know, Damian Clinton, I don't know if you remember that name, Derek. He's in Texas. I talk to him weekly. Another one of my players is a principal in one of the schools I represent. So, you know, all those young men, you know, basketball was just the beginning. They all turned out to be wonderful people.
Derek, what I'm hearing is, and I don't know these guys personally other than the clinic with Coach Johnson, but what I'm hearing is the word you use nowadays, I don't know if we used it back then. These guys created a great culture in those years, and that's why they are able to slay giants.
Your state championship year, Wayno, I thought your team was maybe the least likely to win a state championship I'd ever seen. And that's no disrespect.
Yeah, we were really fortunate. They bought in, and you know, we're a small little farm town, but them boys, I was able to give them a scouting report, and they could follow it to a T. On the opponent's first pass, they knew what play they were running, and that was with a sophomore point guard. But they really bought in, and then applied what you put in the classroom. They applied it out there in the court.
I think one of the things too that we should give credit to is those teams that had the great culture. They had great parents.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so often today the parents are the problem. The parents are the problem. I'm not going to lie to you. It was easy to get out because I was tired of the parents after 30 years too. But on my really good teams, the ones where the kids really cared about each other, they had fabulous families. And, I think that's where it starts with those groups.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about
Well
it.
said.
Well said.
Well said. Kirk, your state championship team, we talked about how well you could shoot it and you had the Singleton kid inside. But one of the things that Tom and Kirk have a lot in common in how you coached was how quickly your teams converted from defense to offense.
Yeah, I just felt, one thing as a coach that I really, really worked hard on for our teams was to be in shape. And, I just don't know if that's a key ingredient, but it was one of the key things for us is we wanted to be in shape, and then we wanted to convert from defense to offense as quickly as we could. Now, very similar to Coach Johnson, we wanted to take good shots, and shot selection was very important to us, as I heard him mention shot selection previously. But we wanted to put the pressure on the defense and attack them as soon as possible. I wasn't as good as probably a lot of coaches at coming up with 75 different plays. Rob Sheldon used to tell me he'd have 75 plays and he'd put 15 in for this game and 30 in for this game. And, either I wasn't smart enough or my guys weren't smart enough. I don't know which it was, but we wanted to convert into offense and then use our abilities. I wanted them to freelance a little bit and get shots. So we were lucky to have, again, just like all these guys have mentioned, great kids with great backgrounds and where they came from.
Derek, like Kirk, we wanted to convert quickly as well. And, I learned my up-tempo offense from Jim Hamill. But I would say Jim and I were different. Jim's kids, when I was his assistant, there were a lot of 25, 26-foot shots. Granted, we made a lot of them. We were more entrenched into trying to score in our secondary. We scored a lot more in our secondary break than we did our primary break. And when I didn't have teams that were athletic, what we would emphasize is pushing the ball up the court fast enough so as you make the first two passes in your reversal, the defense is trying to recover to you. And if we could do that, then we could always get the ball inside. It made screening, and Derek, you know how important screening was to my teams. It made screening a whole lot easier when a guy's got his back turned to you and he's trying to find where his man is. And that's where I think that my teams utilized our transition offense the best.
My teams had to guard that stuff, so I still have nightmares about it.
Yeah, well, I still have nightmares about playing against Gavitt because you found a good way to keep us from doing it. So,
well, that screening that Tom's talking, I think that's a great coaching point is when they're not set up in their help side, ball side, this and that, and Wayno's teams were as good as there was at doing stuff like that. But when they're not set up like that, that's a great time for our motion offense to hit somebody with the back screen or a screen away or anything. It's
a great time to back screen.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah, anything, but you have your pick. Setting up the screen is less important. And, but yeah, I do miss teaching. You know what? I miss teaching kids how to screen. That's not part of our roundtable question, but if there's one thing I really miss, I miss teaching kids how to shoot. We haven't mentioned footwork tonight, but God, I can hardly stand some of the footwork I see. And I miss teaching kids how to screen the proper way. And I don't see much of that anymore either.
Yeah, I think screening away from the ball and, as somebody previously mentioned, being able to set up that screen and read the defender, I think that's a lost art.
Yeah. Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Here's a question for you guys, and this is a kind of a hot topic. Has the amount of lay coaches being hired as head coaches and even varsity assistants, JV, or let's just say assistant coaches, affected the high school game?
I think it has.
I definitely think it has.
I think it has because we're educators. We all got in this business to work with kids, and basketball is just part of what we do. I was a secondary math teacher, and I always felt like what I did in the classroom wasn't so different than what I did on the basketball court, and that was to help prepare kids for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I'm not trying to criticize people, but if you're not in that culture and that's not what you want to do, a lot of the lay coaches come from the AAU circuit. And that doesn't make them, it doesn't mean anything about them, but I don't think that they understand the big picture. And how could they? Because they're not immersed in this. I mean, we have our players in class. And, I always thought there was one job I was offered coaching a basketball team at one school, and I was going to have to teach at another. And my response to that was, no way, I need to be in school with the kids every day.
Yep.
Not just my basketball players, but you know what? I was building relationships with kids that were coming to cheer for our teams. We were fans of the other sports. The girls' team knew that we were going to be there. I was able to talk to the kids after soccer games that I announced. And if you're a lay coach, you don't understand this culture, because at the end of the day, we are not making them basketball players. We're giving them tools in the toolbox so they can use it when important things happen. And I always believe that it was never about whether the kid hit the free throw with no time on the clock. It was about what happened the next day. And if that kid failed at the free throw line, he could still succeed in life because he had that experience. That's what I think the difference is.
Boy, and to piggyback on that, and I'll try to be as short as I can, because I know Wayno and Coach Skaggs probably have some comments, but just what Coach Johnson said, by nature, you show me a coach and they know how to work, and they know how long hours are, and they know what it takes to educate, and they carry it over into onto the basketball court, football field, whatever. And I think the attributes that a teacher has is a great setup for what coaches do.
Yeah, agreed. I always like to think I like to try to teach the game. Like I said, we have farm boys out there, and we have to be pretty precise. So we really try to teach the fine points of the game. But agreed on, a teacher has a leg up over a lay person because of the human interaction. You see them in the hallways, you see them in the classroom. And I'm a big one on human interaction, which why I suck at. That's why I'm tech challenged. I just I think we're getting away from the human contact, and I do not like that.
Derek, I completely agree with what all these guys said. I would be, I think a school first and foremost needs to hire a teacher coach. And I understand, there's some times now, maybe in situations where there's really small schools and they may not have a teaching opening, and so they have to do that. But there are places now, you're exactly right. They're going to go hire this trainer, they're going to go hire this AAU coach, and I'm not sure they're looking at the big picture like you guys are talking about.
When you've got a lot of assistants in the building, or hell, even now just one.
And on top of that, Derek, what Tom's talking about, that person that missed the 2 free throws, or you know how to handle them the next day, but you also have to know how to handle him when he makes those 2 free throws,
right,
and he sees the star of the show. You know how to handle it then too.
Yep.
Yeah. My dad and my grandfather were both head coaches, and one thing they both told me before I went into coaching was your ability to take these kids and teach them how to do something, it better be pretty darn good, because if you can't do that, then you're going to have a miserable career as a teacher.
Yes, absolutely. Great point. Yep.
All right, next topic. Pat, did I cut you off, Pat?
No, you're good. This is outstanding.
I've never been called good in my life. Thank you. First time for everything.
Yeah, that's a downgrade. You're always great, not good.
No, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can remember walking out of Sonora's gym several times, not feeling too good about myself.
Yeah, but Jerseys was there, so
What do you guys think about the shot clock in high school basketball?
You know what? I obviously know it's a big topic of conversation and so forth, but boy, I sure hope that it doesn't happen, but it's probably going to.
Unfortunately, I think it's inevitable. And I'm a guy that, I wasn't up tempo, as you guys knew. I wasn't up tempo, but believe it or not, I was in favor of the shot clock because I would be able to get us set up and run something in 35 seconds, whereas my defense, they damn well better not break down in 35 seconds, and people would be having to throw up crap at the end of the shot clock against us. So believe it or not, I was actually in favor of it just for that factor, not for the good of the game, but just for
Not for
personal.
the good of the game, but for the good of your team.
Yeah, yeah.
See, you told me that the last time you and I were together, Wayno, and I'd never thought of it like that, and that's a great point.
Well, I've had the unfortunate pleasure of playing against Wayno's team quite a few times, and believe it or not, I played against Wayno my third year of coaching, and the final score was 78-75.
Yeah.
And then my ninth year of coaching, I think he beat us 28-22. But my point being this, just what Wayno said about his defense, I think coaches, whether they're for the shot clock or against the shot clock, they will find a way to adjust and play to that. Just like Wayno said, the teams that are going to have a tough time are with teams that are great defenders. And I always hoped and prayed we were a great defensive team. I wanted to see them try to rush and get something off against us because I thought we could sustain the defense for that long. And I know Paul's teams felt that way, Derek.
Mm-hmm. Derek, my reasons for being, if I had a vote, I would vote against it, and it's really for the reasons that you're talking about. I mean, you could easily say, hey, well, it's going to help some kids get ready for college. Well, we've all coached a long time. How many kids did we have that went on to play in college? This is high school. It's not college. I mean, my team wasn't going to come down and hold the ball for 30 seconds and then run a play. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think it might be tough for some small schools to pay for it, to find somebody else and pay them to run the clock, especially for people that are not coming to the games.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, I was at an OHSAA meeting on Monday. From what I'm hearing, they're thinking of maybe paying, and again, you're talking monetary wise, financial wise, they're paying a JV official to stay and run the shot clock as opposed to a volunteer.
That would make better sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what they're talking about down at the meeting in Columbus on Monday.
When I think of the shot clock, I think more bad shots. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And so I'm hearing you all on this call. Of course, you're good coaches. If you have the shot clock, you will figure out how to use it to your advantage because you are good coaches. However, I don't think that it's good for the game of high school basketball. I think that just for me personally, the shot selection issue is enough to say no. And then the second thing I'll tell you is that I'm looking at how Derek Sheridan's teams played versus how my teams played. And oftentimes, if Derek could hold the ball for 50 seconds against our teams, he was going to do it. And I just think that it takes one more level of coaching that is taken away from us. And I also think that it's going to be geared so that the more talented teams are going to win. Mm-hmm. Now, Paul, I'm sure that you will make it work in your favor. You know what I mean? And the fact that you're a deliberate team is not going to change your success. But I don't think that there are many Paul Waynes out there anymore. I don't see the career coach that will make the proper change as the game evolves.
Well, thank you for that, and I do owe you at the end of this for your compliments there, but to be quite honest, even though it would benefit, I think it would benefit us. I'm against the shot clock. For the exact reason you're saying, Tom. I think basketball will become wild and crazy as opposed to. That's why I enjoy going to the college women's game. It more approximates our high school.
And you know what? We were talking about post play earlier. I see good post play in the women's game. I love watching Don Staley's teams play. You want to talk about big girls that know how to hard hedge a ball screen. My goodness, those girls know how to, those women,
Yes,
I'm
they do.
sorry, know how to move their feet.
You got that right.
But I agree with you. I'll sit down and watch a women's game and watch the whole game. And there are times that I turn a men's game on and I'm like, you know what? I'm just getting frustrated here. I feel like I'm sitting on the bench again. I want to enjoy this.
Well, and I think about that shot clock, Derek, the last thing I have is just what Coach Johnson and Coach Skaggs said. It's the high school game. Why do we have to be like the college game necessarily? I mean, and there's obviously always going to be ties to that, but we don't have to have the same rules that the college game has, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Well, agreed.
And has there been an issue with college players in the shot clock? I don't hear that as an issue with freshmen in college. I see these freshmen go into college and they some of them dominate the game.
Well,
But
that's
I've
when
never
Coach
heard a
Skaggs
coach.
mentioned that. When he mentioned that, I thought if they're good enough to play college basketball, they're going to adjust the shot clock just fine.
Exactly.
But, yeah, great point.
I had a coach say to me same thing. Well, it's going to help the kids who go on to play in college, which is a very small number of kids. But I thought to myself, well, it could very well be. But I know my freshman year in college, learning how to play with a shot clock was the least of my concerns. Getting through a class with good enough grades to keep my scholarship was Derek Sheridan's first line of concern.
Everything else is easy, right?
Yeah. Next topic. What do you guys think about the newer onset of the head coach and the assistants wearing the tennis shoes during the game, but not dressed in such a way that, you know, the sport coats and the tie, I was around for that era. And then I switched to the sweater like everybody else did, even up until I retired from coaching. I'm just curious to hear what you guys think about the more modern laxed tennis shoes for the coaches and that kind of stuff. Do you think that's had any impact on the game?
I don't know if it's had impact, but I wouldn't do it. I would dress like I always did, and I'll use two examples.
I'm here to ask a favor of you, and trust me, I'm not the world's best at asking favors from other people, but if you like the materials we submit online, if you could smash that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and share our materials, that exponentially helps us grow our Basketball Nexus platform. Thank you so much.
My folks taught me that for important events, you should look your best. And that's why you go to church on Sunday, you wear your Sunday church best. And the other thing is my wife, Michelle, I think she once told me, look, if you can't be good, you should at least look good. and so I'm not going to weigh in on it too much. I don't like it as much. That's what I wore to practice. I don't know if it impacts the game or not, but if I were still coaching, I'd still have my dress shoes and pants on and a jacket or a tie or maybe both. But that's just a personal choice.
That's a good question, Derek. You know what? It's just kind of, I don't know. Do you say it's a changing of the times, whether that's right or wrong? I probably wore, I learned, 2 years real quick under Mark James. I mean, he wore the same cowboy boots. He probably still wears them, but he wore a coat and tie every game. So probably the first 20 some years of my coaching career, I wore a shirt and tie about every game. I will tell you, probably my last few years at Logan Sport, my coaching staff and I agreed. We started getting different pullovers, and then last year, I think I wore some kind of pullover every game. So, I just think it's different. I mean, when I did my student teaching, when I first started teaching there in the early mid '80s, guys, you had to wear a shirt and tie to school teaching. I'm not. I mean, now you can walk into school and there'll be a bunch of guys wearing blue jeans. It's completely changed.
Yep, agreed.
That's one area where my dinosaur tactics kind of relaxed a little bit. I started out wearing three-piece suits. And by the end of the first quarter, two of them pieces were off. But then I went into Louis Carnesecca's sweaters,
Yeah.
and now here lately, I actually did help a player of mine asked me to help him out in last year, and I did wear quarter zips, but I didn't wear tennis shoes. I still wore dress shoes.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it's a personal choice, Derek, and with a lot of people. And I was a graduate assistant at Ohio University, and Danny Nee made us wear suits and ties in the office during the work day, let alone game night. So, I mean, he just believed firmly in, you're supposed to look good and you're supposed to look right. But I did as Wayno did, and as Coach Skaggs did, as my age got up there, I started to go to the polos too. So
I think a lot of it, Derek, is societal, and I think it's post-COVID. We were talking before the show started, and I mean, when I go out into the field, I have to look professional. But I can tell you this, I didn't have to look professional when all of my meetings were on Zoom. And you could just see from my shoulders up. And I believe that, I think that's about the time, if I remember right, that coaches started dressing different. You were having to wear a mask. And I think that you see it everywhere now. I don't just think it's a basketball thing, a coaching thing. I think it's everywhere. And I will say this, I said that I keep dressing the same if I were coaching, but if I'm not meeting with administration in my current job, I mean, I'm just meeting with my teachers. I'll wear jeans and sometimes a t-shirt. So I've changed as well. So I don't know what it means.
Derek, my first 7 or 8 years at Attica and at Benton Central, they actually had them in the equipment room. They already had green sport coats. So my players all wore a shirt and tie and a sport coat. I mean, I think the fans and the people thought it was great when those guys walked out there for the JV game, sat right behind the bench. They all had a coat. I mean, they really looked good.
And Pat, you remember our red Lafayette Jeff Blazers?
I sure
is
do.
the exact same thing.
I sure do. And then I was going to point out, my last couple jobs, the school didn't have that. And, had some kids that would probably have a hard time coming up with a nice dress shirt and slacks and dress shoes. So we just went to the travel suits, just like most other teams, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a great point. I'll wrap it up with the attire thing with this. I guess for me, the biggest thing is it's one more step closer to AAU.
Yep.
And I just can't stand the tennis shoes. But anyway, that's something I'm going to have to go see Fraser Crane or somebody. All right, last topic. If you went back into coaching as a head coach, let's say you get hired right now, something crazy happened and a principal calls you and says, hey, you got this job and it's yours. What would you do differently now compared to what you did throughout your career?
That's a tough one because
that is a good question.
I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm a dinosaur and I can't get away with this. A lot of the new wave stuff. I do things a lot similar to, obviously, from 77 to present day. Some of my drills and some of my offensive and defensive philosophies have changed some, but I'm a big one on teaching the basics, the fundamentals, and discipline. I would, if I got hired back someplace tomorrow, I would be teaching fundamentals and discipline starting day one.
This is probably going to be the same answer that you just got there, Derek, so I won't be long. But, I just, the people that coached me and who I have great respect for, they all had the KISS philosophy, and that's what my coaching philosophy was. And I'm just not sure there's a whole lot of things that I'd change. I'm sure that I'd tweak a couple things maybe as far as, possibly what we did on Saturday mornings, getting ready for games and stuff like that, possibly, but not a lot, Derek.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I wouldn't change anything. I enjoyed it. I was lucky enough to get out when I was ready to get out, and I was able to do it the way I wanted to do it. I think that the one thing that the one piece of advice I give the young me is make sure to enjoy those kiddos while you have them.
Yeah, good point.
And when I went to Wheeler late in my career, I don't know, I don't remember doing it consciously, but I took the time to just enjoy the kids. Not and it wasn't just my basketball players, but it was my students as well. And there were so many other times in my career where I didn't appreciate them like I should have until they were gone.
Mm.
And I had this big hole to fill with somebody new. And so, but I also think that you're not going to enjoy the kids till you get to a point in your career where you got a lot of experiences under your belt. And maybe at 27, when I got my first head coaching job, I was, I had a family, I had children, I had a lot going on in my life. So I'm not blaming myself. I really appreciate, I wasn't at a great basketball school, but my last 7 years were the most fun because I just took the time to get to know the kids better and enjoyed being with them. Didn't like coaching games as much at the end of my career, but I could go to practice every single day of the week.
Those
Oh.
were great answers, Coach, and I would agree with everything those guys just said. I had a situation last year, and again, it was Attica's a real small school, and I had a kid that was a senior, great kid. He told me, he said, Coach, hey, I'm going to miss the third game of the year. I've got a big cattle show down in Louisville, Kentucky. Well, he lives on a farm, and farming's their family business, and this is something that this kid's going to do for a career. And I would say probably if I was 25 or 30, I probably would have said, nope, that's not going to happen. But I said, hey, I completely understand. I mean, he thought of me, he said, Coach, if you don't want me to play, I won't play. I said, heavens, no, we need you. You're a great kid. I completely understand. And I understand this is for your future, and you go right ahead. We're going to miss you. And obviously, he missed the game, and he came right back. And I mean, it sure didn't bother me. I completely understood it. But no, just to answer the question, Derek, I'm probably still going to do a bunch of jump stops and pivots in that first practice and every day. I'm not going to worry about teaching the Euro step. Yeah.
Yeah, from an X's and O's standpoint, it wouldn't be any different than the last day I coached.
Hey, I've played the game, and I want to know how you teach the Euro step because I don't have a clue on that one.
Yeah.
You didn't have the Euro step at 27 feet, Kirk.
Gee, many Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely do not referee the game like they did when we were playing. I can tell you that.
Coach Skaggs.
Well, that was a really good answer, Pat. All you guys had great answers. That's good stuff. Does anybody have anything they want to throw out there just off the cuff?
Tell you what, Derek, here's one thing. We probably can't talk about it because this will be its own show. One thing I was maybe hoping that you would bring up is the off-season summertime rules.
Oh, that's
And
a
that,
great
if
topic.
if I had one thing that I would change about the game and in my years of coaching, boy, that's the first thing I would go to. But that's a big story there.
Yeah, that's a great topic. Obviously I'm not as astute as Patrick Skaggs because I didn't think of that.
No, that's okay. Maybe you can have that on part 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'd take that to the bank. That's good stuff.
This is what I miss.
Yeah.
I miss talking to coaches. Derek, once we started getting things like huddle, the days of meeting you in the parking lot at Baker's Corner and spending 2 hours in the car, an hour and 45 minutes talking about who we're going to play the next week, and the other 15 minutes we were solving world problems.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that. I think that that's something that our game has lost because now to get a film, Paul, you had talked about, getting films and, it's like when I started, it was like nobody made copies of their VHS tapes. There was one and you had to go find it.
Right.
And, with Huddle now, it's like I could send 3 emails at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 9 o'clock have 3 games in my inbox. And I think the game has lost a lot because people like us don't sit together and have these conversations anymore because we don't need to.
Agree 100%.
And
Not, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Not only that, but you don't see 12 coaches on a Monday or Tuesday night in the stands kibitzing while they're scouting a game. I could go on ad infinitum here. The meetings for sectional seed is Zoom, for crying out loud. We used to get together, then we'd go out and have a few pops afterwards. And again, I'm a human interaction type guy. I think that I feel sorry for these younger coaches because now they can press a button as opposed to going and meeting in that parking lot or wherever and trading tape.
And the amount you learned about the game.
Oh,
I mean, you'd be sitting with coach. I mean, Derek, you and I, our style of coaching is on opposite ends of the spectrum. But, I learned so much about the Princeton offense talking about you. And then when I went to Lebanon, Western Boone was really proficient in the Princeton offense. I mean, we would not have been able to defend them like we did had you and I not had a million conversations about the book you were writing on the Princeton offense. And so I don't just think we lose out from a camaraderie standpoint. I think we lose out from an understanding of the game standpoint because, I learned a certain way to coach from a certain guy. And, I learned a lot from you, more than you would ever take credit for, I'm sure.
I can lower anyone's expectations.
See, you just proved me right.
Some of my best plays come from a napkin at a restaurant or a bar.
Exactly.
And like Tom said, that's the part, when I decided to retire from coaching, I thought, I've worked hard enough. I busted my tail and it's time, but the talking to the coaches and, the preparing and stuff, I don't miss near as much, but the talking and discussing and just being around. So Derek, Sheridan, thank you for including me into this particular Zoom because it's been absolutely awesome and I'll remember it forever. So thank you very much for that. And that's the biggest part that I miss about the game.
I appreciate all you guys doing this for us. It's been a great evening of talking shop, and that's what I miss by far and away the most. Like Paul said, just sitting halftime of games we're scouting and talking and things like that. The out of bounds, the special situation out of bounds play that I ran my whole career and won quite a few games with that one simple play I got from somebody while we were out exchanging film. I wrote it down on a napkin. All right, guys. Hey, this has been great. Thank you so much. It's been great seeing all you guys and hearing you, Pat. It's been great. I think the world of all you guys. I hope you know that. And if there's anything I can ever do to reciprocate, I certainly hope that you ask me.
Same, Derek. Thank you. Thanks for this evening. This is a really good evening for me as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good seeing you again, Tom, and Pat.
Well.
Pat, you look as handsome as ever up there.
Paul, I went and got a haircut today, and I can't believe I'm not on there. It's something else right now.
And Pat, I'm going to say, see you next time, and really mean it.
Okay. Sounds great, Coach. Thanks again, Derek. I enjoyed it.
Good.
Thank
I'm
you,
glad.
Derek. It was a blast.
Great. Well, thank you so much, guys, and please stay in touch.
Will do.
Sounds good.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.